Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to explain about uh, a feature called like no internet connection or no internet connectivity feature. So before I jump into the stuff directly, I'm going to explain like what my intention behind this video. Say suppose you have a pretty good large code base and you want to implement this feature. So before like explaining all the stuff, I'm going to show you an example like how other apps work. For example, our lovely YouTube. If you see, there's a thing called no connection because there's no connection. And if you give data, there's like back online. And if you do the same thing, I mean, it will happen the same way. And if you do this, it came back. Later, what I'm going to show is like this YouTube app is not like a really small one. It has like a lot of stuff, lot of screens, and you want to know like what happens if there's like no connection and how do you implement it if you have a large code base. I don't know about YouTube, but if you have your own app, how do you do it in the right way? So, and also one more thing is right now everyone's like on to, especially, I mean, not everyone, I won't say everyone, but I'm on to like MVVM, and also the Google's like pretty telling us like, hey, we are like providing you Android architecture components. Why don't you guys use it? So I looked up um, live data because we'll be using live data a lot, right? If you're using view models, um, if you look at live data, go through a live data example, then I've seen this example like, hey, you can extend live data and you can do much more. Then I've got an idea like, why don't you uh, make a singleton class which extends live data, and so that every activity or every fragment can observe that live data, and whenever there's change in the UI, or whenever there's change in the internet connectivity, if there's an observer, it's gonna show up the change in the UI like no connection or whatever, like however you want to show. So let's get to our app. Suppose we have a data and I made this app. Oh, that's a plugin. Okay, so I made this app. I mean, it's like a sample app. You can build it like from new project and you'll get this, but I added the no internet connection feature to this app. So right now there's like internet connection, that's why it's not showing up anything. But if you like remove the data, you're gonna get like no internet connection. And once you remove it, once you give it, it's gonna dismiss. And your view can change the way how you're showing snack bar. It can change, or you can show a banner, or you can show some kind of what do you call a model which explains what to do next. So depending upon your use case, you can use that. But the main concept is your activity or fragment is observing your observing the changes for the data and it's getting back. And if you want to look more like how to do the connectivity status and everything, Google has pretty good documentation on that part. But let's head to our stuff. So uh, I've been telling you I'm using live data, right? But to for this use case, I've used a thing called like single live event. I'm gonna post this. I'm gonna post a documentation on like what single live event and why I'm using a single live event instead of using a live data directly. Because if you see in live data, uh, the observed values will not only compute once, and if you do a rotation, it's gonna reobserve, it's gonna get the value. But for our use case, if there's any change in internet connection, you get a snack bar, and if you rotate the screen or something like that, you don't want a snack bar. That's not our use case because you already know that there's like a uh, no internet connection. We don't want to bug the user every time or spam the user with a lot of pop-ups. That's not a good thing. Of course, I get mad, I often get mad if I see that kind of stuff. But if you take advantage, if you use single live event, your value, the observed value will be shown only once, which is like a perfect use case for us. So you don't need to worry about the single live event. But If you come to network connectivity checker, which I'm going to explain, it's going to extend a single live event, which is obviously a mutable live data, uh, which gives a value of Boolean, and the override values are like on active and inactive. So I'm going to show you what I'm saying. Right now, if you go, if you're like over there, it's like unregistered. And if you if you're on resume, it's registered. And if you're inside the app, you'll be fine. There won't be any change. So this whole checker util is like lifecycle aware, and you don't need to worry about anything. So you can focus on your problem, like what you want to show, what's your logic is. Here, my logic is, if you look at the documentation, like you can use the network connectivity manager, uh, and what do you call, you can register a callback so that whenever there's like change in the internet connection or whatever, it's gonna update the value. It's gonna update the value of the live data itself. I'm gonna show you like where. So and also in on active, which is like a pretty basic thing. On active, you register the callback, and on inactive, you remove the callback. But because in inactive, even if you like show the values, it shouldn't do any kind of UI stuff, right? If you're in the background. Um, so coming to the util part. So on active, um, the network connectivity callback will be registered. So the callback contains this, like if there's an internet connection, it's gonna it's gonna notify all the observers with the value called true. And if there's a loss, if there's no connection, it's gonna be like a false. It's gonna emit false. If you want to see like what's in notify, it's gonna post value of the status, so true or false. So what it does is wherever this live data is observed, we'll get the values over there, and you don't need to worry about any kind of stuff. So coming to our use case, here this is like a single page application, and which has like which uses navigation component architecture, navigation architecture component. Sorry, my bad. And if you see, these are like multiple fragments. I'm doing this. I'm performing this logic with fragments. I'm not doing it like whole app wide because your use case might differ. If you want to do the same thing in app wide, you can apply that logic like in the main activity, and it's going to be applied everywhere. But I like to do in this way because this supports my use case. So what I did is like, say suppose you have like multiple features like dashboard, home, and notifications. But if you make like a base fragment, or it is like I just made a base fragment, it's pretty simple. I made a base fragment in the on resume. This obvious thing like say suppose the observer only happens when during on resume, right? But what happens if there is no internet connection and you open the app? So it should check for the connection, right? That's what I did. Like it checks for the connection. So in the check for connection, it checks the value, and there's like a util which will be on the GitHub. You can look at it. I'm not like going to discuss in detail about that part. So it's gonna give you the value, and it emits the value over there. So depending on the value, it shows whether there's internet connection or not. And it can be snack bar, it can be anything, and this whole logic can be abstracted out, and each screen can have its own UI for this. But for the sake of like this tutorial, I just use snack bar. And the good stuff is like on resume, uh, you'll like check for the connection, and you'll have like a internet connectivity observer, which is like a live data, right? Which I already explained, like this like single live data, which observes, and it takes the fragment life cycle, so you don't need to worry about like any kind of crashes later. So this observer will have like if there's a false and true, depending on logic, it performs. And you don't need to write any kind of code to the fragment, to any kind of your feature fragments, because your base fragment will have it. But if you have like hundreds of features like this, and you want to apply the same logic to the whole app, because it's like a single page, single activity application, you can apply the same logic here instead of the base fragment, and it applies to whole app, and you don't need to do too much. So yeah, this is what I want to explain. I mean, I want you guys to use this kind of observer pattern for this kind of use cases. It's not only, it doesn't only apply for what do you call, for the no internet connection. It can be applied for many concepts, but you have to choose them wisely. Like, how do you want to do it? So I thought like this is like a pretty cleaner way, and we already have like live data. So why do we have to go and do other kind of stuff? Why do we have to maintain, like, write a lot of maintainable code in the sense like write a lot of code, a lot of layers to do simple tasks like this. Yep, that's it I want to explain. If you want to use this feature, you can just check out my GitHub. Uh, I've, I'm in the process of like setting up my Facebook page, Instagram account, and Twitter. So please kindly like follow me and feel free to advise like what should I do next, or where should I improve more. I've been trying to do these kind of things like weekly ones. I might like increase the upload rate later. Thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. Bye bye.